Welcome and thank you for joining this presentation. Today I will addressing a vital question for teachers in 21st century. How can schools successfully incorporate critical and creative thinking into their curriculum design to promote general capabilities in the future? As a pre-service teacher, I recognize that every student brings unique strengths and needs to the classroom. Our challenge is not only to promote them in achieving content-based learning outcome, but also to equip them with broader skills that enable them to thrive in a rapidly changing complex world. Among these capabilities, critical and creative thinking stand out as fundamental to lifelong learning, problem solving, and innovation. Critical and creative thinking are widely recognized as core competencies for the 21st century. In fact, Ritter, Palman, and Sean Beck remind us that the definition of creativity shapes how it is measured and consequently the kinds of outcomes we obtain. One another definition offered by Detrich and colleagues in 2015 describes creativity as the ability to generate ideas that are both original and useful in a specific context. More recently, the OECD in its 2024 PISA framework defined creativity as the competence to engage productively in the generation, evaluation, and improvement of ideas that result in effective solution, advance in knowledge, and impactful expressions of imagination. These definitions reveal that creativity and critical thinking are not abstract ideals, but practical skills that enable learners to generate, refine, and evaluate ideas in a meaningful way. In Australia, the importance of CCT is embedded in the national framework. Since the introduction of the Australian curriculum in 2010, ACARA has emphasized the development of general capabilities to ensure that learners become successful learners, confident and creative individuals, and active and informed citizens. Within this framework, critical and creative thinking are positioned as essential in preparing students for life and work in the 21st century. ACARA explicitly calls on teachers to not only value but also teach CCT across the learning areas. This includes using the organizing elements of CCT, which encourage students to inquire, generate ideas, reflect, and act on their learning. In other words, CCT is not treated as an optional add-on but as a foundational capability that must be interwoven throughout curriculum design. Research supports that explicit teaching of CCT ARCs and HUGs as well as the Australian Education Research Organisation in 2023 describe explicit teaching as a practice that involves explaining and modeling key concepts, then providing guided practice and feedback. This model is particularly important for CCT because such skills are not automatically transferable between domains. As Lingam points out, critical thinking is hard won but develops over a long period of time when it is deliberately cultivated within specific subject contexts. Therefore, schools need to design curricula that not only encourage inquiry and problem solving but also explicitly model and scaffold the reasoning processes that underpin these capabilities. Despite these strong policy directions, there are still challenges. Research suggests that many teachers do not yet have a consistent understanding of what critical and creative thinking look like in practice. Davis and Willing highlight that in both Australia and internationally, teachers report uncertainty in how to define, measure, and explicitly teach CCT skills. Further, an ACARA Commission report by the Institute for Social Science Research in 2021 found inconsistent implementation across schools. This inconsistency limits the effectiveness of the curriculum goals, as students may have unequal opportunities to develop these vital skills depending on their teachers' confidence and expertise. The case for embedding CCT is not only pedagogical but also social and economic. Saleh argues that 21st century students require a skill set fundamentally different from their predecessors. They must be prepared for globalization, digital literacy, rapid innovation, and multicultural societies. They must also be equipped to navigate in employment market increasingly defined by adaptability, collaboration, and problem solving. Schools cannot afford to only teach static knowledge, but they must actively prepare students to engage critically and creatively with changing context, technologies, and challenges. In short, CCT is essential not only for individual success but also for building resilient and innovative societies. So, how can we practically embed CCT into curriculum design? One effective strategy is problem based learning or PBL. Ferguson describes PBL as a student centered approach that emphasizes self directed learning. Students are presented with authentic, often complex problems and must research, collaborate, and propose solutions. Importantly, this process develops both critical and creative thinking as students evaluate evidence, generate multiple perspectives, and apply knowledge in real world context. For example, a PBL unit on sustainability may require students not only to understand ecological principles but also to design innovative solutions that balance environmental, social, and economic consideration. Inquiry based learning or IBEL is another powerful approach. Almula explains that IBEL stems from constructivist theories, positioning students as active participants who investigate, question, and problem solve. This approach cultivates curiosity, encourages deep engagement with content, and nurtures critical reflection. A third approach is the integration of STEM through project based learning. Wardat and colleagues note that STEM integration has a highly favorable impact on students' learning as it combines science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in meaningful applied context. However, embedding CCT also requires careful consideration of assessments. For example, the OECD PISA Creative Thinking Assessment in 2024 attempted to measure creativity across dimensions such as originality, diversity, and evaluation. Yet, by aggregating scores into a single proficiency scale, the assessment may have lost nuance and failed to capture the richness of creative processes across different domains. This highlights a broad challenge. Measuring CCT is valid and reliable ways in complex. Schools must therefore balance the need for accountability with the recognition that critical and creative thinking often manifest in diverse context specific forms. To conclude, embedding critical and creative thinking into curriculum design is both a challenge and necessity. Definitions of creativity and critical thinking may vary, but there is consensus that they are vital for preparing students to thrive in 21st century. The Australian curriculum provides a strong foundation by identifying CCT as a general capability, yet research reveals inconsistent implementation limited teacher confidence. Pedagogical approaches such as problem based learning, inquiry based learning, and STEM project based tasks provide valuable strategies for explicitly teaching CCT in engaging and authentic ways. Finally, ongoing professional development, coherent policy frameworks, and innovative assessment practices are essential to ensuring that CCT is not merely an aspiration but also a lived reality in classrooms. If schools can successfully integrate these capabilities, students will not only achieve their learning goals but also emerge as adaptable, innovative, and critically engaged citizens ready to shape the future. Thank you.